In the northern mountains of Vietnam, where rice terraces rise in steps toward the clouds and mists lie in the valleys until noon, stands a village called Chang An, Eternal Peace. The people there live modestly but wisely, and most famous in that village is an old man named Than. No one knows how old he is. He himself says he remembers the times when the French first came to the country, and the elders whisper that he remembers even the Chinese emperors. But Tan is not famous for his longevity. He is famous because he has never once been wrong about a person. People come to him from neighboring villages. Merchants ask him to assess future partners. Mothers bring potential husbands for their daughters. Even the abbot of the local temple consults him when choosing assistants. And each time, Tan looks at the person briefly a minute, two, and says, "Take him," or "Don't take him." And not once has his word been wrong. One day, during the rainy season, a young man named Quang knocked on Than's door. He was the son of a fish merchant from the coast, had come to the mountains to sell dried mullet, but having heard of the sage, he stopped in Chang'an. "Grandfather Than," said Quang, bowing to the ground, "I have heard of you. They say you read people like an open book. I will marry soon. I have 2 girls in mind. One is beautiful, rich, from a good family. The other is an orphan, works in her uncle's shop, but her heart is kind. How do I choose?" Tan lit the hearth, threw in some dry bamboo branches, and gestured for the guest to sit on the mat. "My son," he said, stirring the embers with a stick, "you want to know a person? Do not listen to their words. Words are like banana leaves. Any fool can pick them, and in a day they wither and turn black. If you want to know what is inside a person, look only at 2 things." "2?" Quang was surprised. "Only 2? "Only 2, the old man nodded. "But in these 2 things lies everything, like 2 halves of one mat. If you have both, you can sleep. If not, you will lie on bare ground." He was silent for a moment, looking into the fire, and began his story. "First," said Tan, "watch how a person treats those who are beneath them, those who cannot talk back, those who have no power, money, or strength." Quang listened attentively. "In our village there lived a man," the old man continued. "His name was Nguyen. He was wealthy, had rice fields, water buffalo, a house of hewn stone. And he came to me once just like you now. He wanted to marry the village elder's daughter." "And what did you tell him?" asked Quang. "I said nothing. I simply went with him to his home as if to see his property. We walked through the village, and by the road sat a beggar, old, blind, covered in sores. He stretched out his hand and moaned. Nguyen did not even turn his head. He stepped over him like a stone." "Maybe he was in a hurry?" Quang suggested, timidly. Tan chuckled. "It got worse. By his gate stood a little neighbor girl, about 5 years old. She was carrying a water jug, tripped, and spilled the water right at Nguyen's feet. The girl got scared and started crying, and Nguyen screamed at her, called her worthless, and even raised his hand to her." "And what did that mean?" asked Quang. "It meant everything," replied the old man. "Nguyen thought I was looking at his fields and buffalo, but I was watching how he treated those who could not fight back. You see, my son, power always goes to the head. Any fool, given a little power, starts to feel like a god. But there is one thing." "What?" "Those who are empty inside," said Tan, "always look for someone to humiliate, because only that makes them feel they are worth something. They kick a dog, yell at a servant, hurt the weak, but those who have dignity inside, they protect, because they don't need to prove to themselves that they are strong. They already know." Quang thought for a moment. "And what happened to Nguyen?" "Nothing. I told the village elder not to give his daughter. The elder listened. Nguyen married another, a rich girl. And 5 years later, he went bankrupt, took to drink, and now he himself sits by the temple with his hand out." But they rarely give to him. They remember too well how he kicked other people's dogs. Thon paused and added, "Everything comes back, my son. Not immediately, but it comes back." "And the second?" asked Kwang. "You said there were two things." "Second," said Thon, "watch how a person accepts what they cannot change." He threw more branches into the fire, and the flame blazed brighter. "There was another man in our village," the old man continued. "His name was Chuang. He was a silk merchant, transported goods to Saigon, and he was a lucky man. Everything went well for him. Everything succeeded. Until one day, in the rainy season, his boat capsized on the river. All the silk sank. Precious, painted, northern silk. Everything went to the bottom." Kwang sighed. "A terrible misfortune." "A misfortune," Thon agreed. Chuang returned to the village a beggar. Creditors knocked on his door. His wife cried. His children went hungry. I went to him to comfort him and found such a scene. Chuang sitting in the yard, kicking an empty rice sack. "Kicking a sack?" Kwang was surprised. "Kicking and shouting, 'This is all your fault. If it weren't for this sack, I would have stacked the silk differently. You understand?' He was looking for someone to blame. He blamed the rain, the river, the boatman, the sack, his wife, the government, everyone but himself." Don shook his head. "I left then and never went back to him, because I understood this man was broken not by the loss of money. He was broken inside. A coward always looks for someone to blame. The wise bow to fate, cry if they must, then get up and move on." "And what happened to Chuang afterward?" asked Kwang. "Nothing. He still sits in that same village, drinks rice, wine, and tells everyone how the river set him up. No one believes him anymore, but he keeps telling. And every year he has new people to blame." The old man turned to Kwang. "Remember this, my son. Life hits everyone, rich and poor, smart and foolish, kind and cruel. Rain falls on all. The question is not whether you fall or not. The question is how you get up. If you rise with dignity, you are human. If you rise and look for someone to kick in return, you are just an animal." Kwang bowed to the old man and returned to the coast. A year passed, or maybe more. Who counts time in the mountains? One day, Fan sat by his hearth and suddenly heard footsteps outside the door. Kwang entered, but not alone. With him was a girl modest, in simple clothes, with calloused hands from work. She bowed to the old man and sat by the threshold, not entering the house until invited. "Grandfather Tan," said Kwang, "I have come to show you my bride." Tan looked at the girl. He did not ask her name, nor her family, nor her dowry. He was silent for a moment and said, "Tell me how you found her." Kwang smiled. "I did as you taught me. I did not listen to words. I followed her." "And what did you see?" "I saw her by the temple. There sat a stray dog, thin, mangy, covered in sores. People walked around it. Some even kicked it. But she approached, sat down next to the dog, took a rice ball from her bag and gave it to him. The dog ate, and she just sat beside him, stroking him. No one saw, no one praised. She just did it." Dan nodded. "That is the first. And the second," Kwang continued, "happened a week later. We went to the market, and suddenly a downpour began, the kind that comes like a wall. Everyone ran for cover, cursing, hiding. But she stopped in the middle of the road, raised her face to the sky, and laughed. I asked, 'What are you doing?' She said, 'The rain is coming anyway. You can get wet with anger, or you can get wet with joy. I choose joy.' The hut fell silent. Only the dry bamboo branches crackled in the hearth. Old man Tan looked at the girl for a long time. Then he rose, walked over to her, and placed his hand on her head as one blesses children. "I will not even ask anything," he said. "I have already seen everything. You chose well." The girl raised her eyes to the old man. There was gratitude in them, but no fear. "Grandfather Than," she said softly, "may I ask something too?" "Ask, daughter." "Why do people take so long to learn this? Why do we look at wealth, at beauty, at loud words, and not see what matters? It is so simple to feed the hungry and not be angry at the rain." Than smiled, and the wrinkles on his face became like rice terraces, deep and wise. "Simple, you say?" "Yes, simple. But simple does not mean easy. It is easier to judge, easier to be angry, easier to look for someone to blame, easier to kick the weak when you yourself fear the strong. But to sit beside a dog that everyone avoids, that is hard. To smile at the rain when everything goes wrong, that is very hard." He paused and added, "That is why there are so few real people. That is why you are a treasure, girl. Take care of her, Kwang." The young people bowed and left, and old man Tan remained sitting by the hearth. In the mountains, the mist was descending, and the village of Chang'an wrapped itself in clouds again, like a blanket. Ever since, they say in those lands. If you want to see a person's true character, notice only two things. First, how they treat those who are beneath them. Second, how they accept what they cannot change. Everything else is banana leaves. Today, they are green. Tomorrow, dust.